and the off-road debut of multiple circuit racing champion Geniel de Villiers. Under the new format in operation in off-road racing this season, there was no bike or quad category competitors, with the car brigade gearing up for an event that promised to be both fast and dusty. It's the McRib 400 off-road race. The Tusk Hotel Complex in Mmabatho was like an oasis in a dry Northwest Province. Hosting a national off-road event was a major boost for Northwest Province and Mafeking.
This event was initially the brainchild of the Mafeking Motor Club, who approached both McRib and Tusk Mmabatho for sponsorship. Both companies were very excited with the prospect of hosting this event, because not only would it provide public awareness for both Tusk Mmabatho and McRib, but also for the Mafeking area as a whole.
There's a relaxed and easygoing atmosphere to life in Northwest Province, but an invasion of race officials, competitors and service crew, media and off-road enthusiasts would bring with it major financial benefits for the region.
We are very happy because it is going to increase the spin-off revenue in our province and improve the motor industry. And above all, our youth would also be initiated and be encouraged to take part in this sport.
Leading the Special Vehicle Drivers and Navigators Championships after 4 rounds were Shamir Variawa and Bucks Carolyn. Giel Nel was only 10 points adrift of Variawa, with former South African champion Carolyn holding a comfortable lead over Tracy van Vuren among the co-drivers. A set of circumstances saw to it that the Variawa-Carolyn combination was split up for the Mmabatho 400.
Shamir was going to go overseas on Wednesday night and I didn't have a drive, and I put my name out as rent-a-nav, and John said to me, please, I'll come with him at the race, so here I am. Ready to race, hoping we'll do well. This is my old car, so it's the first time I'm ever going to sit in this seat. I've never sat in this seat, so we'll see. He's a bit of a hot foot, so we'll find out how good he is and how good I still am. I don't know. I'm getting old. You can see my teeth are getting a bit long.
Former motorcycle stars Neil Woolrich and Kenny Schulthammer led the production vehicle category in the factory Mitsubishi Pajero. The pair took to Mmabatho 3 wins in 4 starts to lead Nissan pair Hannah Squabler and Richard Leake, with only a handful of points separating the 3 crews chasing after Woolrich and Schulthammer. There was huge interest in the debut of the new state-of-the-art Nissan to be driven by Squabler and Leake, but for the championship leaders, race tactics centred around consolidating their championship lead.
Well, obviously we want to win the race, but we want to win the championship is the most important thing for us. So we'll push as hard as we can, but we definitely won't go too hard and break the car, you know, anything like that. It's the championship what we're looking for at the end of the day.
Competition between manufacturers is now intense in off-road racing, with Nissan running 4 factory-backed vehicles. The McRib 400 saw Nissan unveil their high-tech Nissan Hardbody Challenger in Class T, with motorsport manager Glenn Hall providing the background information.
The engine's been moved back actually nearly a metre, not the full regulations, and there's 2 reasons for that. One is to improve the balance of the vehicle, and probably the most important is to give us some room in the front to get all the extra suspension travel that we need for these off-road conditions. So it's made it pretty cramped in here. As you can see, we had to move the steering to the left. That was because we've got the engine slightly to the right, because the prop shaft goes down very close to the engine. But Hannah's going to have to get used to that. I don't think it's too much of a problem. As per the standard hard body, we've got double wishbones, but they're a lot longer than they are in the standard vehicle. And we must, of course, keep the standard chassis intact as per the regulations. So one wishbone goes underneath the chassis and the other on top. We've got 2 shock absorbers per side, one to carry the spring and the other one really as a pure damper, which is very big, nearly 3 inches in diameter. The rear suspension, again, standard live axle like the hard body, but we took away the leaf springs because we want a lot of extra travel, and we ended up with a 3-link rear suspension, which is not usual, but during our designs we think that was the best. Again, we've got 2 shock absorbers, one to carry the spring and another 3-inch one for the damping, and that really takes care of the rear end.
The Nissan Hardbody immediately showed its potential. The hugely experienced Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek are both former South African off-road and rally champions and romped away with the pre-event speed trial, which determined start positions for the McGrid 400.
Well, it's unbelievable. We didn't thought we were going to do that well. It's the first time out for the vehicle. We didn't have a lot of time in the seat yet with the left-hand drive and also with the vehicle testing. But the guys did a marvelous job to do the vehicle in the short time. And we're very happy to be in the front. The only problem is that tomorrow we won't know how far the guys are behind us and what pace they're driving. So, but also for them it's going to be hard because they're going to probably have to come through my dust to catch me if they want to pass me.
Championship leaders Neil Woolrich and Kenny Scholthammer posted the third fastest time in the speed trial. The phlegmatic Woolrich was quite happy to be cast in an early follow-my-leader role.
I quite like to follow rather than lead, so I'm not too fussed about that. I think the dust is going to be a bit of a problem early tomorrow morning. I think the dust will hang a while, but I don't mind dust too much either. It's not too serious.
Reigning South African champions Avi Reiniger and Robin Halton in the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser were looking for a boost for their championship hopes. As far as Reiniger was concerned, the big problem would be the expected dusty conditions.
With the dust tomorrow, I think there's going to be a problem for the cars. The first car is going to have a huge advantage with the dust. He's going to pull a couple of minutes before the second and third car. We would go as fast as we can, but also stay on the road, because once you leave the road here, it's a lot of rocks and ditches, can damage your car, and that's going to cost you very seriously.
The Mitsubishi Colt factory team has joined the manufacturer's battle going on in off-road racing and recruited rally ace Enzo Kuhn. The Mabatu event also produced fresh ideas from the Colt squad.
We had a problem in the front diff coming adrift every 200 or so kilometers, and we had to refabricate the mounting bracket at the diff. It seems like the front suspension takes a beating on these vehicles. You end up jumping, coming down on the front wheels, and you know the whole momentum gets transferred from the front, so the diff takes a knock. And but we put a new bracket in there. We're wanting to try it. This is our development year, so going forward.
Circuit racing stock Anil de Villiers has dominated the Banken Touring Car Championship in recent seasons, but now there was a change of environment for the young Cape driver. To ease him into it, Nissan snapped up veteran rally and off-road champion Piet Swanepoel.
My secret weapon went very, very well today. I'm actually very impressed. And, you know, if it hadn't been for the fact that I know it's his first time on dirt, I don't think I would have been as nervous as I was. He's actually very quick on the dirt, needs obviously to learn to read the road properly and to brake a little bit earlier, because on dirt you don't stop as quickly as you do on tar, but very impressive, and I think we'll go a long way.
Road race.
The first section of the route, about a third of the route, is nice open territory. The guys will pick up a lot of speed there. There are a couple of sections that are very tight and cornering, a lot of turns and U-turns in the route. The second half of the route gets a little bit more technical. There's a lot of rock, there's some hilly country. There's a certain spot for about 2.5 k's that the guys are really going to battle. They're going to need crutches or something to help them get through there. And then the last section is nice and open through farmland. We've got 1 or 2 mealie lines thrown in just to remind them of certain of the other races that we have in the area. And towards the finish, nice and open, and they can make sure of a good finish.
A bonus for off-road competitors is that they get to see some marvellous African bush sunrises. You need something to compensate for the early morning starts that are a feature of off-road racing, and it was a chilly band of officials, competitors, service crew and enthusiasts who braved the early morning cold for the start on the outskirts of Mafeking. First to come under starters' orders were time trial winners Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek in the Nissan Hardbody. They were followed by the Dark Dog Raceco of John Weir Smith and Bucks Carolyn, who were the first of the special vehicles in the time trial. While Weir Smith and Carolyn set off in pursuit of Grobler and Leek, it didn't take long to realise that dust in the Northwest Province was going to be a major problem for crews. Back at the start, current production vehicle championship leaders Neil Woolrich and Kenny Scholthammer were waiting to get underway in the factory Mitsubishi Pajero. Cars were scheduled to leave at 1-minute intervals, with final results at the end of the day calculated on corrected time. Strategy for Woolrich and Scholthammer centred around a steady start, with the pair not taking any early risks. The Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser pair of Api Reinicker and Robin Houghton were expected to take a more aggressive approach, and behind them, Shamir Variawa with mechanic Zahir Bodhania alongside him, in place of Bucks Carolyn, signalled his early intentions in the Cornbake Jimco. Behind Variawa and Bodhania, there was an early change in the running order, with the raceco in the hands of Greg and Fred Dowse moving ahead of Toyota Desert race winners Mark Corbett and Juan Moore. Corbett and Moore finished ahead of the Dowse brothers in the time trial, but were having problems in the dust. Chasing after the two special vehicles were Cliff Barker and Vic Camphor in the Quadrishaw Land Rover, and hot on their heels were Jacques Joubert and Donnie Smith, who were making a welcome return to off-road racing in the ubiquitous 4x4 VW Beetle. Next up were Bevan Berthold and Atang Mahachaneni in the Speed Stick Raceco, with the pair looking for their second win of the season. Into an early lead in Class E were Castrol Toyota pair Chris and Andrew Birkin, with race cam action from the Toyota indicating that the McRib 400 was also going to be a high-speed affair. A good scrap was starting to develop in Class E, with the Birkins running ahead of Jean-Pierre Joubert and Errol Hodgson in a privately entered Toyota Hilux. Right behind Joubert and Hodgson were Noel and Robin Quinn in the Mitsubishi Pajero, and the Class E battle lines had quickly been drawn. Frick Mulder and Willy Jordan in the mean-looking Jojo Tank's Chev running in Class T were a little over-enthusiastic, and as a result briefly strayed from the route. No harm done, but the pair were destined to eventually number among the non-finishers. In the dry and dusty conditions, Mulder and Jordan weren't the only crew to be given a little early race wake-up call. Glenn Eccles and former motorcycle track star Dave Esterman decided to test the brakes on the Dark Dog WPP-12 with crew and vehicle, then disappearing in a cloud of Northwest Province dust. There was also a little late braking at the same spot from Renier and Alex van Rooyen, who were quickly back on the route. An error in judgment from Class D contenders Hein Hrobler and Charles Volmerans also served as a reminder that in the heat of battle, mistakes were all too easy to make. At the front of the field, Hannes Hrobler and Richard Leek were charging along in the Nissan Hardbody and held a handy lead over Neil Woolrich and Kenny Scholthammer. It was an impressive first outing for the Nissan, but when the power steering failed and forced Hrobler and Leek to call it a day, the steady Woolrich and Scholthammer were back in a familiar role as race leaders. Unlike the new Nissan, the factory Mitsubishi Pajero is a race-proven vehicle, but the experienced crew were still not prepared to take unnecessary risks. The production vehicle championship leaders were going along steadily, but behind them, special vehicle leaders Shamir Variawa and Zahir Bodhania were in attack mode after a puncture cost them time. That forced the pair to move along their Cornbake Jimco ahead of Cliff Barker and Vic Camphor in the Quadrishaw Land Rover. Racecam action is from the Mitsubishi Colt of Enzo Kuhn and Francois Jourdan. The pair were running second in Class D, and true to form, the McRib 400 was turning into a high-speed affair. Sections of the route were a little rough and called for caution, but there were no problems at this stage for Kuhn and Jourdan. The same could not be said of father and son pair of Bodo and Gary Berthold, who were having a tough time of it in the Raceco. The Raceco had been reduced to running with only third and fourth gear, and the Bertholds were being closed down by Cliff Wiechelt and Johan Smelberger in the privately entered Toyota Land Cruiser. Jean-Pierre Joubert and Errol Hodgson now led Class E, but there were problems for a stranded Nick Harper and Andrew Chalupsky.
We're not sure if it was CV or gearbox lost drive, total drive in there. Making noise, it's going fine.
Harper was making a welcome return to off-road racing, but that was as far as the Rock Oil Raceco was going to go, and the bush can be a lonely place for stranded off-road racers. Cars were coming and going at a rapid rate, while for others there were stops that varied in duration, and that depended on how long it took to repair damage to battered vehicles. Already out of the race were Hannes Hrobler and Richard Leek, with other crews struggling with various problems. John Weir Smith and Bucks Carolyn had dropped back with gear selection problems, and a broken steering wheel was hampering the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser of Api Reinicker and Robin Houghton. They'd purloined a replacement off a reluctant spectator, while Bodo and Gary Berthold were stuck in the service area for over an hour repairing gearbox damage. For an outside observer, the service area was organized chaos, but for competitors and service crew, just another day at the office. It wasn't turning into a happy day for the Berthold family, with Bevan Berthold and Atang Makakhaneni being towed into the pits. Geniel de Villiers was still running in his off-road debut, and time-wise there was not much to choose between the front-runners in both the special vehicle and production vehicle categories. On the McRib 400, with Neil Woolrich and Kenny Schulthammer in control of proceedings in the factory Mitsubishi Pajero. They led overall and were out in front in the production vehicle category. Behind the Mitsubishi, there'd been a change in the pecking order in the special vehicle category, with Mark Corbett and Juan Moore running at the front of the field and eyeing a second successive victory. Corbett and Moore were ahead of Cliff Barker and Vic Camphor on the road, but on corrected time, the Quadrishaw Land Rover was second overall. Barker and Camphor were about 4 minutes adrift of Woolrich and Schulthammer, with control points along the route keeping track of competitors.
They haven't really spread out that much.
Not yet out of the picture in both the overall and special vehicle stakes were Jacques Joubert and Donnie Smith in the Jojo Tanks VW Beetle Volvo 4x4, while Brandon Harkness and Tom Smith were steadily moving up the field in the Finstruct Raceco. Like his big mate Bevan Berthold, young Harkness has off-road racing in his blood and is an up-and-coming talent trying to follow in the footsteps of Father Arthur, who was a household name in years gone by.
He's got a light on.
Also going well was Shamir Variauer and mechanic Zahir Botchania, who was admirably coping with the co-driver's duties. Behind them, Pete Hasbrook and Christo Bosch had taken control of Class D in a Toyota Land Cruiser. The Freiburg farmers were looking at a possible top 5 finish and had the satisfaction of running ahead of the factory Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser of close friend Arpi Reinecke and Robin Houghton, who were pushing hard to make up for lost time via their steering wheel and other woes. The Quadrishaw Land Rover pair of Cliff Barker and Vic Camphor had by now realised they were only 4 minutes behind overall leaders Neil Woolrich and Kenny Schulthammer, who were trying to up their pace. Enzo Kuhn and Francois Jourdan were also trying to get a move on, but the Mitsubishi Colt was to lose a front wheel 30 kilometres from the finish. Behind the Mitsubishi Colt, the Castrol Toyota Hilux of Chris and Andrew Birkin was back in front in Class E and pulling away from Jean-Pierre Joubert and Errol Hodgson in their Toyota Hilux. For track star Geniel de Villiers, the bush and the dirt roads of Northwest Province were a far cry from AA Kyalami and other race circuits, but he and Pete Swanepoel were still going strong. The pair were running 5th in Class D in a Nissan double cab, and while de Villiers must have been happy with proceedings, it had been a disappointing event for reigning special vehicle champions Franz Czepek Sr. and Jr. The Epson V Motors Chenoweth ran into problems on the time trial, with the pair having to fight a rearguard action. There were no such problems for veteran Giel Nel, who was again at the front of the Class B field in the single-seater Truggy, and consistency has made him a serious contender for this year's special vehicle title. Into the final stretch, and just what the doctor ordered for Mitsubishi Pajero pair Neil Woolrich and Kenny Schulthammer. They were headed for their 3rd win of the season in the production vehicle category, and with it, tightened their hold on the championship. It was another thoroughly professional display from the pair, while behind them, Mark Corbett and Juan Moore were showing all the exuberance of youth. The youngsters were letting it all hang out, with Corbett and Moore heading for their 2nd special vehicle category win in 2 races. They won the Toyota 1000 Desert Race, and back-to-back wins rocketed them up the championship standings. Corbett and Moore were still ahead of Cliff Barker and Vic Camphor on the road, but on corrected time were running 3rd overall behind Woolrich and Schulthammer and the Quadrishaw Land Rover. For Barker and Camphor, it was their best performance of the season and a major boost for the team. Behind the Land Rover, the steady Shamir Variauer and stand-in co-driver Zahir Botchania were 4th on the road, but corrected time saw them fall behind the Jojo Tanks pair of Jacques Joubert and Donnie Smith in the special vehicle class. Freiburg farmers Pete Hasbrook and Christo Smith finished the race with the Toyota Land Cruiser losing 4-wheel drive. For the last 80 kilometres, the pair ran with front-wheel traction only, but completely dominated Class D. Toyota picked up another class win in Class E, with Chris and Andrew Birkin coming in ahead of Jean-Pierre Joubert and Errol Hodgson in another Toyota Hilux. Giel Nel had matters all his own way in Class B, with another fine performance keeping alive his championship hopes, with the reliable Truggy hardly missing a beat. A steady performance saw Hein Hrobler and Charles Volmerans pick up 3rd place in Class D for Nissan, with the pair finishing behind the Mitsubishi Colt of Nars LaRue and Henny Terstegen. There were around 6 minutes separating the Nissan and the Colt, but down in Class B, the gap was a little wider, with Marius and Tracy van Vuren around 8 minutes behind winner Giel Nel. Up at the finish, all that remained was for Neil Woolrich and Kenny Scholthammer to put the finishing touches to what in the end was a comfortable win. It was a virtually trouble-free run for the Mitsubishi Pajero crew, and with just 3 events remaining, they hold most of the cards in the championship. The final gap between Woolrich and Scholthammer and the Barker Camper Land Rover was just on 4 minutes. To the victors go the spoils, and for the 2 former bikers, the winner's champagne is starting to get to be a bit of a habit.
We had one puncher about 100 kilometres out. You know, we started third this morning and we caught up to the space frame in front of us, but the dust was horrendous trying to get past. And at about 80 kilometre point, we pulled up right next to him at a Marshall point and hooted like anything to try and get past him, but we couldn't get past. And then I think in his dust and possibly being a bit over anxious, we clipped a rock on the right front and punctured a wheel. I think we changed it in record time. Must be one of the quickest we've ever changed. And from then on, yeah, no problems. Just kept it all together. Very, very fast race, but very exciting. A lot of concentration because of the dust and, you know, lurkers, rocks all over the place. So a hell of a lot of concentration, but the car went fantastically and we're glad to be here first. Hopefully we've won. I'm sure we have. And with Nissan not finishing, it definitely gives us a bit of more of a cushion in the championship, which is what Mitsubishi is looking for at the end of the day.
In the special vehicle category, Mark Corbett and Juan Moore struck a blow for the younger brigade, and there were thumbs up from the pair as they crossed the line to chalk up back-to-back wins.
Yeah, we had an awesome day's racing, and this is the 2nd win in a row for us after the desert, which was great.
Cliff Barker and Vic Camphor are a little longer in the tooth than Mark Corbett and Juan Moore, but for the Quadrishaw Land Rover crew, the McRib 400 signalled a welcome return to form. There was plenty of light-hearted banter between the crews, with Barker delighted at being back on the podium at the end of an event.
It's nice to at least finish well up for a change. I think it's been since last year's desert race. We finished 2nd in production, so it would have been nice to win, but yeah, it's better than a non-finish.
Although classified behind Jackie Joubert and Donnie Smith in the special vehicle category, there were welcome points for championship leader Shamir Variawa.
One stage, I think we were lying 2nd or 3rd overall and closing. And then we got a back puncher, a rear tire burst on us. So eventually we got the tire changed after 20 minutes because the jack couldn't jack up. It broke on us, and ever since then we were riding flat out to catch Mark Corbett. But obviously the dust posed a problem to us in passing cars, but that's it, clean run.
Overall victory and production vehicle honours to Neil Woolrich and Kenny Scholthammer, with Mark Corbett and Juan Moore taking the special vehicle honours. In the top 12, there was an even split between production and special vehicles, with championship issues delicately poised. Among the classes, there were wins for Corbett and Moore and Giel Nel in the special vehicle categories, with the Haasbroek-Bosch combination, the Birkin brothers, and the Woolrich-Scholthammer team taking class honours among the production vehicle brigade. And those were all the mud, sweat and gears of the McRib 400.